Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to Gamecast Radio Sports Talk. I am Tim Kernan alongside Mike Freshwater. While we know you have a lot of options for your listening enjoyment wherever you are, thank you for making us a part of your day. Mike, this is our inaugural show, so why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and maybe give us a little bit of your background.
Yeah, it's pretty simple. Even though I'm an old retired guy, my name's Mike, and Freshwater. A lot of people call me Fresh, Coach Fresh. Retired technology manager, varsity basketball coach now, and have been coaching basketball at the high school level for about 20 years and broadcasting high school sports for 15 or so. And I've got 3 boys, all who have played sports all through high school and are now out on their own, and 4 grandkids and enjoying life.
And how did you start out into broadcasting?
Well, it's somewhat of a long story, but I saw our play-by-play guy walking into the gym one night down in Cincinnati by himself, and he didn't have his color guy with him who was not traveling with him at the time. And I went over and asked him, did he need any help? I didn't really know him that well. I knew of him, and he said, sure, jump on in. And I was done with my game, obviously, and he was going to broadcast a varsity game. So I joined him, and the rest is history.
Yeah, and I'm assuming you're talking about Joe.
Joe Smith.
And Joe and I crossed paths as well. When my daughter started into high school, I did a little bit of broadcasting for her select soccer team. And when I got to the high school, the head soccer coach was interested in me jumping on and doing a little broadcasting for them. Joe was very instrumental and very helpful to me in getting started. And then when Joe decided to retire about 5 years ago, I was, of course, able to replace him. Yeah. And Joe was very helpful. And I was very thankful to you, Mike, for being willing to stay on and continue doing the color.
Yeah, absolutely. Joe was a professional. He came out of college, and I think he went down to Georgia Southern and was their voice for a year or two before he decided to do something a little bit more in the private sector. But he was very professional sounding. I remember when my kids played, listening to him and Jake on the radio, and it sounded like a professional broadcast. And you've done a really good job, Tim, in picking that up and making it professional as well.
Well, I appreciate that. Mike, did you have any broadcasters that you really liked when you were growing up, or even later on in your adult years?
Yeah, I mean, I watched, obviously, like everybody else, a lot of sports, but I did pay particular attention to the broadcasters. Some of my favorites are old timers. I liked Keith Jackson when he used to do the Big Ten games, the play-by-play guy. From a color perspective, Danny Don Meredith was one of my favorites on Monday night, and so just a million of them over the years that I've enjoyed and kind of try to pattern myself a little bit after, but it's a fun gig. I can't imagine those guys getting paid tons of money to do it, but it's a fun gig.
It really is. It's a blast to call these games, and you and I always have a great time. Mine was probably Tony Roberts. When we were kids, at least when I was a kid, there was only maybe one college football game on per weekend.
Right.
ABC, I believe, used to have one game.
Right.
And so you listened on the radio. That's how you listen to college football. Yep. And I used to listen to the Notre Dame broadcast. Obviously, I'm a big Notre Dame fan. You're an Ohio State fan.
Right.
And but Tony Roberts used to call the Notre Dame football games, and I used to just absolutely love listening to him to call the games, and I've tried to kind of emulate him when I call the games myself.
Yeah, it's funny that you should mention that. I don't remember. I mean, I did listen to Ohio State games on the radio back then, and for the life of me right now, I can't remember who it actually was, but listened to football and basketball on the radio pretty religiously, both Ohio State and Dayton. And so I remember all those guys, and just a lot of memories from listening to those games on little tiny transistor radio.
Yeah, and you and I have done a little bit of TV, and we've also done radio. I of course, love doing them both, but I think radio is kind of my favorite because I really like describing the action for the listener.
Well, I've got a face for radio, so it's a good idea that I stay.
I think we both heard that.
It's a good idea. I stay away from the camera, but for me, it doesn't really matter a whole lot. For you, obviously, it does, but for me, it's just adding my 2 cents in there, whether it's from a coaching perspective, when we do basketball games, or just more of a fan's perspective when we're doing football. So it really doesn't matter to me either way, but I've been doing it for a lot of time now and feel very comfortable doing it. And it's a lot of fun, like you say.
And Mike, I was sitting around the other night and just kind of surfing the channels, and I went out to Netflix and I found the short documentary on Johnny Manziel. I believe it's called Untold.
Correct.
And, there's a lot of stories and certainly articles and discussion going on about NIL right now. But I think he was doing NIL before there was NIL. And, I wouldn't say that I necessarily feel sorry for Johnny Manziel, but it's concerning because I think he's kind of struggling right now.
If you watched that, and it was good. It was only an hour long. It was good. Took you behind the scenes, and you learned a lot of stuff that you didn't previously probably know about. But it was a little bit. It left me wanting a little more.
Yeah, I agree.
But he had problems, and I don't. They didn't mention this. It wasn't obvious by watching it, but he had problems in high school. There's no way he went from high school to his freshman year in college and did what he did from a partying perspective. And so he had to have had issues in high school, and his parents didn't come off as very supportive, in terms of helping him with his issues back then. And what a just a crazy story that unfolded over just a really short period of time.
Yeah.
And that partying craziness caught up to him, and it cost him so much money. I'm sure when he looks back at it, obviously he's got tremendous regrets, but he had issues, and he carried him over into college, and they didn't get any better. They got a lot worse in college, and then he carried him over into the pros, and it was just a total self-destruction and almost really a sad story to watch.
Yeah, you absolutely. I mean, you took the words right out of my mouth. I was going to say the same thing. I got the impression that maybe not necessarily his mom, but I felt like his dad was really enabling him. And kind of didn't steer him away from getting trapped into this world.
Yeah, either enabling or not trying to stop anything or give him any help. And but what an athlete! I mean, he just lit the world on fire. Owned Texas A&M for a couple years, and but I wondered, one of the things I wondered, and I did a little research on this, was did he ever go to class? I mean, I found out he didn't. He took his classes online, and I'm sure that he didn't spend a lot of time academically on those classes and did the bare minimum, if that, to stay eligible. But what a crazy story, and a kid that was totally out of control with nobody around him. I mean, even Lincoln Riley, the offensive coordinator at the time at Texas A&M, didn't sound like it. He did much to step up and help him. They just wanted to keep winning, and they weren't going to change anything as long as they did that. And he just got out of control.
Well, and I really got the impression that he was ad-libbing. Everything was on the field. It's almost like he was just creating himself.
A lot of that, absolutely.
Yeah. And boy, it was just it's kind of sad because he was so talented. And then once he got to the Browns, it's almost like there was a lot of self-sabotage where he was literally just trying to get out of the league.
The whole story behind the agent working with him to get himself in a better position in terms of his draft status is insane. And how does an NFL team, I like the Browns, I'm a Browns fan, how does an NFL team let that happen? How do they keep that much secret, or away from them? Or did they not care as well? Because the craziness they went through to get him draft ready was insane, and it's nuts that nobody really outside his inner circle knew what they were doing, and the Browns either chose to ignore it or thought maybe they could help him, and that too was a total disaster. That there was tremendous excitement in Cleveland when he was drafted. I remember this. I mean, they sold number 2 Manziel jerseys up there faster than they can keep him in stock once he was drafted, and they really kind of thought he was going to be the guy, right, the savior, and it was the whole opposite was true.
Yeah, and again, this was just before the NIL kind of came to the forefront, and that is going on right now. And we're only a couple of years into it, Mike, and I think down the road, we might realize what a kind of a problem that this has caused for the kids. Because I think, especially, I follow Notre Dame closely, and I know that there's been a couple recruits that probably would have gone to Notre Dame, but I think they were affected by the circle around them and were directed and maybe pushed to go somewhere else.
Well, there's no doubt. And for the really high-profile programs and players, it's going to be a difference maker, their willingness to spend the money. An example is the kid that was in Michigan, I think his name Dickinson, the big center. He basically entered the portal and got his choices down to two, Kentucky and Kansas. And it's hard to believe, but Kentucky does not commit to NIL, though they do end up using an agency, and those guys get paid really, really well. But Kansas commits to NIL, and Kansas committed $1 million to him. I mean, basically a signed contract where they committed $1 million to him. Kentucky was basically saying, we can get you $1 million or more, maybe even, but we can't commit to it, right? It's kind of a play on words. I really don't understand the difference, but I mean, I understand the difference. It's money in the bank if you can get somebody to sign a contract and write you a check versus just kind of depend on them to help you with that once you get there. But Kansas did commit the $1 million to him. He signed, and now he's out there, and Kentucky lost out. And Coach Cal's, complained about that a little bit over the past year or two about how Kentucky doesn't commit. But if you look at what those kids are getting paid and how they're helping them get that money, they still get significant money. It just isn't a written contract where they tell you they're going to give you that money come hell or high water. And that's a great example of how these kids are shopping themselves around for money, and not only just straight up money, but chances to earn more money, to get cars and payment for commercials and social media advertisements and stuff like that. And it is going to put a lot of the smaller schools out of business in terms of them having chances to get higher profile recruits. It's just going to absolutely put them out of business. And I don't know where it's going to lead, and I know you don't want to talk about this right now. We don't have to, but the portal's probably a worse problem, and they kind of play hand in hand. But the portal is probably a bigger problem. It's and we can talk about that on another show. But the NIL thing is basically spiraling out of control. And I don't know where it's going to lead, but you're basically going to really limit the haves and the have-nots once it's all said and done.
And where is the NCAA in all this? There has got to be some sort of oversight, and I'm not against players making some money. Certainly
getting free tattoos.
Certainly, I think they probably deserve a little bit of that, but it is out of control. I totally agree with you on that.
Yeah, it is, and I don't know where they're going to draw the lines, and I don't know how much control NCAA has over it, since they did try to control it previous, and but they were sued, and they lost that deal, and it opened up the floodgates.
Yeah, I think this is. We'll see what happens, but I think that this is going to be harmful to some of these kids as we advance through.
When I was in high school, I got a free haircut because I was on the basketball team. Does that count?
I think they may have put you on probation.
It was one of those ones where they kind of shave behind your ears, it looks bald, and they always ask you, that's where that term, did you get your ears lowered, came from. You remember that?
I do. I absolutely do. Well, Mike, we do have a guest today. He covers high school sports and the Dayton Dragons here in Dayton, Ohio for the Dayton Daily News. He also covers Ohio State football for Press Pros Magazine, and he also covers high school sports for Press Pros Magazine. He also teaches at Cedarville University, and he coaches 7th grade boys basketball at Cedarville Middle School. And Jeff, are you on?
Yeah, I'm here.
All right, Jeff, welcome to the show. We really appreciate you joining us. Mike and I cross paths with Jeff's when we broadcast, because Jeff quite often covers the same games that Mike and I are doing. But, Jeff, again, thanks for getting up this morning and joining us on the program.
Oh, we're happy to be here. I really appreciate you guys asking me to do this. What's more fun than talking sports? There's just done it all my life. Think about all the nights I worked in the sports department offices when I worked newspapers full time, and that's you're at work and sit around and talk sports all night. Get the TV on, watching the games. come back from games, talk. I mean, it's just what you do, and it's just it's so much fun. It doesn't matter what we're talking about, whether you guys are talking about Johnny Manziel, or we're going to talk high school football or Ohio State football or the Reds or whatever you want to talk about. I'm here for it.
Yeah, outstanding. And just elaborate just real quickly a little bit on what you do at Cedarville, if you can, for us.
Well, I teach journalism there. I'm a graduate of there in 1987, and then I went on and worked in newspaper jobs in Virginia for 22 years, and I came back there in 2009. They started up a journalism program, so I am the journalism prof there. I also work as the faculty advisor for the student news that we have. We print once a semester, like a magazine type thing. And of course, we have a website where we do more regular type news on that website. So I'm in charge of that. I always have a great group of students. They have won a lot of awards over the years for their work, and I kind of turn them loose, but I keep an eye on it. And they reach out to me when they need help, and I keep just kind of keep an eye on it and try to train them up, and then see them go out and do good work after they get done with school.
Well, Jeff, we crossed paths with you on Thursday night. You were covering the Fairmont Alder game, and that's the school that Mike and I cover. First, I kind of want to get your reaction to that game, and then maybe talk a little bit about the game that you covered last night.
Okay. Well, I think a couple of interesting things I was looking for in that game. One was, Coach Dave Miller with Fairmont talked about, hey, we're going to throw the ball a little bit more. We've been working on it, and I think they threw this ball twice.
Yeah.
That's a lot for them, though,
That is a lot for them.
And I thought going in, it's going to be, okay, if you throw it 5 times, that's a big deal. If you start throwing 10 times, his head's probably spinning. So, but what I thought was interesting, I mean, as long as he's ahead, why is he going to throw it?
Right.
I mean, they're going to run it out of that. They're going to run that triple option. But what I thought was interesting, it was, what was it, 14-7? No, it was 7-0 at the half, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And they come out second half, first drive, and he throws it on first down. And then a little bit later in the drive, they threw it on second down. And I thought that was interesting that he was willing to do that. Normally they wouldn't do that. They would just keep pounding. And he told me that. Again, because our MO is to pound, but we know we have to be less predictable. And those 2 plays seem to just, I mean, as soon as he says he's going to throw it, what's that do to a defense? Oh, we got to worry about this now. And then they just sort of had their way on that drive and got control of the game.
Yeah, I was really impressed with Fairmont's discipline, and I think that is the epitome of Dave Miller coach team. They were just so solid, and they did have a few mistakes, but for the most part, just a really well-coached, solid, disciplined team, and I was pretty impressed.
Yeah, and I thought another interesting play was when they had 3rd and inches there and handed the ball off and scored a touchdown, which was, not normal, right? You're expecting 2 plays. If it takes 2 plays, we're in 4-down territory, we're going to pound it up the middle, and they hand it off and go wide, and they score. And I thought that was an interesting call, too. A little bit breaking tendencies, I think. Those three plays sort of broke the tendency, and now you've got – it's not like they went out and threw the ball 20 times. They threw a little bit when they don't normally throw it, and I think that makes it – I put a little stuff on film for people to worry about. I thought Alter's going to be better this year. I just thought they looked better from what I've seen in the past couple of years. I just think there's something there for them to they're going to be pretty good. And I can tell from talking to Coach Downsides after the game, he was happy with the way they fought back, stayed in the game, didn't give up, and found a way to move the ball at times and didn't get bludgeoned, by Fairmont's offense. And I was walking away from the coach and said, I think you guys are going to be a lot better this year. And he said, I do too. So something to that effect. I don't know if he said those exact words, but that was the idea that he felt that way.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think when Mike and I were talking after the game, we were both pretty impressed with the way that the Alter kids didn't give up and kind of fought their way back. But boy, when you get down 2 scores on Fairmont, you're in deep trouble. And I think that was the problem. They just ran out of time, and also couldn't get the big stop.
Right. And coach says, hey, I'd like to run the wishbone a lot more, but reality is I like to win more. So the reality is we had to put it in the air. And I think Gavin Connor's got enough experience that they can do that. And they made a couple of good catches, and I don't know that he has an all-league type wideout to throw to. Don't know that, but I think they showed they can get to that move the ball.
And Jeff, which game did you cover last night?
I had a tip at Bellbrook, and that was an interesting game. Bellbrook won 21-7. Tip, of course, went to the state semis last year. With only 2 starters returning last year, they had 2 starters back, and they go all the way to state semifinals. And one of those guys was the quarterback, William Peronsky, and he was very good. Dynamic. He threw for 2,000 some yards, rushed and ran for almost 1,000 yards, and he's gone. And so that was the big thing. We got 3 guys that were working at quarterback. 2 of them played last night. They started this one guy, Butera, as the sort of the runner. But when they got behind, they brought in a senior, Peyton Schultz, and he passed them down the field to where they were able to get a touchdown late. And so I talked to Coach Burbach after the game about it. And said, yeah, that's kind of what we're doing. They're trying to feel things out. And the third quarterback is actually his son, Braden, and he's recovering from some injury, not quite ready. So I don't think they're at all settled on who their quarterback will be, and if it will be one guy all year. But Bellbrook looks pretty strong. They've had, they run that wing tee. They've had bigger backs in the past. Jeff Barandi a couple years ago, I think he led the state in rushing, one of the top 15 guys in the country that year, gaining yards. And then Elijah Brooks was good last year. And they got 2 juniors and a sophomore running the ball last night. I'm writing about them this morning. There'll be a story in the Sunday paper just about their backfield. And it's one game, but Tiff was strong for defense most of the game, but they couldn't get a first down, so their defense was on the field too long. And these guys, these 3 running backs, did the job for them. Kept moving the ball, and got them in the end zone enough that I think Bellbrook will be, they're going to contend to win that division in the Southwest Buckeye League again. Tiff will be a contender of some level in the Miami Valley League. I don't know if they'll win it this year, but they're going to be pretty good. So they just got to figure some stuff out on offense. But their defense is going to be, I think their defense will be good because they really held Bellbrook down until, Tiff had 1 first down through the first 3 quarters, and your defense can only hold up so long.
So Alder and Bellbrook play week 5, September 15th. You've seen both teams now. What are your thoughts on that matchup?
Interesting. That is an interesting matchup. 2 teams are going to want to keep the ball on the ground. I think Alter has the ability to throw it better than Bellbrook does. Defense, that's going to be a good game. I think that'll be a good game. They played in the past.
Yep.
Trying to remember.
Yeah, they have
every
year.
Yeah, they have a few times, or more than a few times, over the past 15 or 20 years. But it's a great neighborhood rivalry. It's a game probably that should happen every year. It is a home and home deal, so we'll play them at home this year and then go to Bellbrook the following year. And then a lot can happen between now and week 5. But I was interested in getting your perspective on that, since you're the only person in the world now that has seen both teams.
So they didn't play last year. Is that what you're saying?
Correct.
No.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I'm about as expert as it gets right now, huh?
Yeah.
That's not saying all. So I think I think it'll be good. I think it'll be kind of in the probably both teams will get 2 to 3 touchdowns, and it'll be something like that. Um, I think I think they'll be pretty close. Delbrook's got a good kicker. He's got a great leg. He had about 4 or 5 touchdowns last night. Um, or not
That's a
4 or 5.
weapon.
He had a couple touchdowns.
Yeah, if Alter can be 4-1 and Bellbrook 5-0 for that game, that'll garner a lot of attention in the area, I would assume.
It surely will. It surely will. But Belbrook, I was going to say, Belbrook had their kicker. He missed from 39 and 40 last night. He had the distance both times, just pushed it a little left. So that could become a factor in a tight game.
Absolutely,
right?
absolutely. Well, I won the game for Fairmont the other night. When we were watching that game and broadcasting it, I told Tim way before that even happened. I said all Fairmont needs here is a score. It doesn't have to be a touchdown, a field goal will work. And that kid's a weapon for Fairmont. He's kicking the ball out of the end zone or into the end zone. He's making 40-yard field goals pretty easily. And a good, solid kicker in high school can be a major weapon.
No question.
And they had one the last couple of years. What was his name? Can't think of it. Too many guys to keep track of. But they've had that, and they've got it again. So yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Jeff, you also cover Ohio State football. Is there any update? We're still a couple of weeks away for Ohio State football. Notre Dame starts next weekend. Can you give us any update on the Buckeyes?
Well, I think the biggest thing everybody's looking for is who's going to be the quarterback.
Yeah.
I've heard a lot of people positive, a lot of different theories, right? Well, it's really not that close. He's just saying it is. It's going to be McCord. I've heard some others say, well, if it really is this close, then maybe it's going to be Brown. Why make it this? Why hang on this long if Brown's not squarely in it? I don't know.
Have you been to a practice and seen both of them or not?
I saw him at a spring practice. I saw them both throw there. I was at the spring game, but Brown didn't play. They've had one open practice that I was not able to get to. I don't know how much you can tell from that.
Right.
They're both high-level kids. They're both going to look good in practice. I would say, from what I saw in the spring game, McCord was better in the second half than the first. So Ryan did say something this week about consistency, and I think that's what it's coming down to. I think if he's got his mind pretty much figured out on who, he just wants to see a little more consistency before he tells them. I think he's pushing. He started from day one in the off season after the way they lost their last 2 games last year. Games that they couldn't stop stuff in the third quarter, fourth quarter, and those 2 in Michigan and Georgia. And he made everything about competition. Then, at that level, there's a lot of competition in practice every day. They do things, but they like measured everything. They were counting stuff. They were giving points here and there in practice for stuff. Every drill, somebody was a winner and a loser. And I think he's just carrying that through all the way, just trying to, I think, toughen this team's mentality up that it's a 4-quarter game and you can't let down for one play. You have to win every play. And is that what's going on with this quarterback battle? I think there's some of that mentality in there that he wants, whoever this is, the first-time starter, he wants them to be as mentally tough as possible. And so the more he can put them through the ringer in preseason and make every play count, I think he thinks that'll make him better.
And I just wonder how much does it matter if either one of them is better at running the ball, right, or scrambling, or who's the more athletic kid? Because last year there was a lot of criticism around why did C.J. Stroud not run more until later in the season when he was more willing to do it or was part of the game plan and it actually worked. And so I just wonder if that has anything to do with it. Is either one of them a better runner, more athletic than the other, or are they both pretty equal?
And Brown's always been the guy who's the more off-platform guy, as they say now, the guy who can get out and do stuff.
Right.
And I don't think McCord slouch at that at all. I just think Brown's better at it. But I mean, I think McCord can't. If CJ Stroud could make the stuff happen with his feet late in the season like that, then kind of anybody can.
Yeah.
So I mean, but I mean, if you're Ryan Day coaching that offense when you got Travion Henderson and Mayan Williams in the backfield,
right.
you got Marvin and Emeka Ibuka and Julian Fleming.
Yeah.
What do you want your quarterback to run?
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, yes, in those few moments, I think when Stroud did that, pick that spot here and there, it really makes something happen.
Yes.
That's important. But to make it part of your game plan, I don't think that's necessary.
Yeah, and I don't think that's Ryan Day's style either. But a local question, I guess, if you will, have you heard anything? I haven't reached out to him personally since I saw him this summer, but heard anything about how C.J. Hicks is doing?
I think he's not going to start at linebacker. Eichenberg and Steele Chambers are the linebackers. And
sure.
They run that 2 linebackers. But CJ's right there to play. I mean, he's going to get some, he's going to get some time. I don't think he's going to play a lot, but he's probably the first linebacker off the bench, so to speak. I think they like him. They like what he can do, and is really a guy who is going to make an impact. It's just, it's how soon. He's just, that if you get to college, and sometimes you got to sit and wait behind guys for a couple of years. Doesn't matter how good, how talented you are. But I think they like him. It's just a matter of when's he going to get a shot.
Right.
Yeah, there's a lot of talent up there, so it's quite often it's hard to break through. But yeah, we've heard some good things. Rumors that he's doing well and that they're trying to find a place, to get him on the field. But yeah, linebacker, Ohio State notorious for having great linebackers. So I would imagine that's a tough nut to crack up there.
Well, they talked about this jack position too, this thing of Jim Knowles, this hybrid kind of a spot, and how would they use it? They tried Jack Sawyer in it last year. That really didn't work. He belongs at probably left end most of the time. CJ could be a guy who fits in there if they go with that package, and Knowles wants to do that. But there's also a thing of what's our best 11 at most of the time, and so you get with that.
Right.
And they're going to get tested early when they match up with Tim's Fighting Irish, so things are going to shake out pretty quickly.
I'm looking forward to going up there for that game. I've not been to a game at that stadium before.
Oh, you're gonna fall in love, Jeff.
I doubt it, but
Jeff, I just have. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I look at my wife's from up there, so I've been up there a lot when I was younger. We haven't been up there in a long time. Our parents don't live there anymore, but I've been by the stadium and so forth. Been on the campus a couple times years ago, so I am looking forward to seeing the game there. Just like, I'm looking forward to going to Michigan. I'm looking forward to going to Wisconsin this year. So.
Yeah, those are some tremendous venues to be going to watching college football, right?
Hopefully they'll both be undefeated and it'll just be a huge game. But Jeff, I know you're a busy man. I just have one more question before we let you go. And for kind of the local listeners, are there some players in the area that are getting some attention that maybe a little bit about and they're being recruited?
Well, yeah, there's quite a few guys. I'll tell you one thing that jumped out to me just looking at stuff last night and reading today. Dave Jablonski was at the Wayne Fairfield game last night, and that was a crazy game. Wayne won 58-51. There was over 900 yards of offense in that game. Wow. Wayne's quarterback, Terrell Lewis, have you ever seen him?
No, but I know somebody that was at the game last night texting me status updates, and he sounds tremendous.
Yeah, he's a junior. He started some and played a decent amount as a freshman. Started last year. They went 6-5. I saw him play. You see the talent. He got an offer from Louisville early on. The offers are sort of settling in that MAC area. Because last year, I think there was some inconsistency to him, and I think that was something. I'm not to put it all on him, but that was something that held them back. Just finding consistency, probably in a lot of areas, and not just him. But if he plays like that, and is all of a sudden, let's say, as a junior playing like a senior, Wayne could be very good. They could be tough to handle. Keon Hunter's a good receiver for him. That's a good player. Northmont's got some kids. There's a junior on that team, Dorian Brew. He's a defensive back and a receiver. He was not a name you heard last year. He didn't make any all-league teams. He certainly didn't make all Southwest District. And now all of a sudden he's a 5-star for his class, and he's a junior. And
5-star, wow.
He's got Ohio State, Notre Dame, Michigan, you name it, offers. And he must have. I haven't talked to him or talked to Coach Broering at all, but the obvious assumption is that he blew up on the camp. He camped well this summer, and everybody saw. And I know he's fast, and he is like, they see the traits and the potential, and that's why he's shot up the recruiting. But that's a guy that's getting. And they got 3 or 4 other guys that are more mid-level, max, or maybe a little higher recruiting too. So Northmont, I think, is a bit of a team to watch, especially because they're Division II this year. Everyone else in the GWAC is D1. Northmont dropped into Division II this year. If they go 6-4 in the GWAC and are in a lot of games that they lose, watch out for them in the playoffs in D2.
Yeah, that's a kind of a peculiar slip in divisions. I didn't see that one coming, but evidently they aren't adding students anytime soon. I don't know what that's going to mean to their basketball program. They'll probably stay Division I, but that slip down to D2 is a big deal, kind of like when LaSalle slipped down to D2 a few years ago and made a run at the state every year. And that's going to be an interesting thing to watch once the playoffs start off with Northmont.
Absolutely, it really will be. And there's a lot of other kids around that are going to get some looks. There's always plenty of kids, D2, FCS, MAC. There's several of those kids. Those are the 2 bigger. Lewis, I think, is an interesting one to watch, that quarterback. And I thought just one last thing, the other interesting result last night was Springfield beat the St. Ignatius.
Badly. Easily, right? 28-11, I think, right?
Right. And a new quarterback, Upshaw, who threw well over 200 yards passing. They've had 2 All-State quarterbacks the last 3 years.
Right.
2 years. And they I'm not saying he's going to be All-State, but if he can play like that all year, they might have another shot.
Right. We're going to see maybe the best quarterback in the area when we play Trotwood, Timothy Carpenter. We saw him last year. He single-handedly beat Alder in the second half. That's one of the things I'm looking forward to this season, is seeing that kid play. He's committed to IU, and that's, when you're going to the Big Ten as a quarterback, that's a pretty major praise, and I'm going to be interested in seeing how much he's improved over last year, because he was really good as a junior.
Sure was.
Yeah, I think, he's got the traits. The ball, I love the way the ball comes out of his hand. Not to try to sound like some kind of talent evaluator expert, but he just throws it well.
Right.
It's just natural. It's just smooth, and he's a good runner.
Yeah.
I think that's the team. That is a team that could be very scary come playoff time. They're going to play some tougher teams here early, then they're going to play city league teams because they're not in the league.
Did they win? Did they win last night? I don't know how to even look their score up because they're not with the league anymore.
I looked at the scores and I didn't see it.
But they played Winton Woods, who's a perennial playoff team, and that's a major challenge right off the bat. I'll be interested in seeing what happened there. And like you said, their early schedule is pretty difficult. They play some tough teams, obviously, including Alter in that. But with 16 teams making the playoffs, I guess, with their record, they probably only got to go 5-5 or 6-4. They'll probably be better than that, but if they're not, they're going to be, they are dangerous. He is the real deal.
He really is.
Yeah. Winton Woods won 21-7.
There you go. Yeah.
All I know about.
Yeah, not surprised by that score, but that's a tough game for Trotwood. But I fully expect by the time we roll in and play them, I think week 4, right before Bellbrook, that's going to be a pretty highly anticipated, matchup in the area, certainly for Alter. That's one of their next really big games, and seeing him and kind of getting revenge, if you will, on him from last year after what he did against them in the second half is going to be an interesting prospect of that game.
Right. And, and they're D3, so they're
right.
That, you get into D3
right.
playoff time, you're looking at Trotwood, Bellbrook's probably a factor, Tip to be a factor. Baden will be, of course, and maybe CJ. CJ could be. CJ should be better this year.
Yeah, that's a tough. Yeah, that's a tough region. Yeah.
Lift up a program when he goes there.
Right.
That'll be interesting to see. What happens.
Well, Jeff, we really appreciate you taking some time here this morning to talk to us. We'd love to have you on again if you're interested. And please let everybody know where they can find you.
Okay. If you're on Twitter or X, or whatever it is, whatever they call it now, I'm JW_Gilbert on there. I have, like you guys mentioned, I write for Dayton Daily News and PressProMagazine.com. That's a free site. I do mostly Ohio State football there, prep stuff here and there, and so those things. I also have a sort of what you call a Substack newsletter. If anybody's familiar with Substack, I'm just putting stuff out there once or twice a week during the school year, just some other thoughts and notes about high school sports. If you just, it's at Jeff Gilbert, Substack.com, and you can read stuff there, and you can subscribe, and you can just get an email.
All right.
And I've subscribed to all of that stuff, and I've followed Jeff on Twitter and seen him at multiple games over the course of the last couple of years, and he does a great job. He keeps me up to speed on a lot of stuff that I want to know, and I highly recommend that everybody also do the same.
Okay, thanks. I appreciate that. And yeah, we make this pretty much a regular Saturday thing.
Sounds good.
That sounds great, Jeff. Thanks again. Have a great weekend, and we'll talk to you soon.
All right, take care, guys.
See you, Jeff.
Thanks
Bye-bye.
very much. Well,
he's great, man.
Yeah, that was fantastic.
He's great. Extremely
Jeff,
knowledgeable.
Extremely knowledgeable. Great to have a kind of a connection for Ohio State. We got to find one for Notre Dame now. But great to talk to Jeff. We've crossed paths with him several times.
Yeah.
The last handful of years, and talked about doing something like this. And you and I are finally getting it going. But kudos to Jeff. I reached out to him. He was very willing to participate. So nice to have him on.
Yeah, I've had enough conversations with him. He's into just about everything from a sports perspective. I think he does fantasy league football, and he and his buddies have a Cincinnati Reds podcast or something. And he's a local guy with, obviously big preferences to the local teams, but just a great knowledge of everything that's going on around Dayton and in the region. I missed Mark Pendleton. He was really good, and he did all that for the Dayton Daily newspaper before. And now there's Jablonski. He mentioned David Jablonski and Jeff, but he does a lot more than just write for the Dayton Daily newspaper, and he's got all those other publications he produces content for. And so really like him. I'm really happy and glad that he's going to be able to join us because he can give us insights like nobody else. Absolutely. And boy, Mike, when you woke up this morning, fall is certainly in the air. I know it's going to get warm here again, but boy, these last couple of days really give you that football feeling. Yeah, last night especially, it got chilly quick, and we turned off the air conditioner and opened the windows. But but it's going to be in the 90s here real soon. So the true dog days of August are about to hit us, I think. And then I think once we get through that, we'll be solidly in September, and football will be at the top of everyone's minds.
Yeah, high school football, of course, started this week. College football is supposed to start the Labor Day weekend, but Notre Dame and Navy kick off next Saturday. That game is.
Who you like in that game, Tim?
It scares me, to tell you the truth. Navy.
Can you tell the two teams apart when they're playing? That's another problem.
Just because one will be wearing white and one will be wearing navy, but
their uniforms look so much alike with the same helmets and everything,
yeah.
right? Although they do wear those special things.
I think each team is going to kind of have their own special uniform.
Okay, cool,
day.
good, cool.
I don't think Notre Dame's is going to be much different. They have a little bit different design, but they will be wearing their Navy jersey. It's a home game for Notre Dame, excuse me. But Navy has a first-year head coach in Brian Newberry. He was their defensive coordinator from 2019 through 2022. From the things I've read, he's a very, very intelligent coach, great at the X's and O's, and just relentless in his pursuit of improvement. So I think he's going to be a great coach for Navy, but it's always kind of scary. He's probably going to be throwing everything he can at the Irish.
Oh, absolutely. Navy has nothing to lose in that game, and Notre Dame has everything to lose, right? And that's going to be an interesting game. It's always fun to watch, very competitive. Does Notre Dame still play? They don't play all three of them. They just play
they
Army
play
and Navy
every year, and Army once in a while.
Okay. Yeah, no, but that's cool. It's a great tradition. I mean, you go way back, and talk about some of the Four Horsemen and all that kind of stuff back in the day when those teams, when Notre Dame and the academies, especially Army and Navy, were three of the top programs in the country, and it's got a lot of tradition, and it's the opening game, and so everybody in the country is going to be excited and ready and willing to watch that one, I think.
Yeah, it's a difficult game just because the Navy plays that triple option, and now are some rumors that Newberry may have a little bit different slant to that offense. So
interesting.
Notre Dame going to have to be prepared for everything, and a lot of people wonder why Notre Dame plays Navy. But if you don't know the story, but back when their World War was going on, Notre Dame was struggling. About to go into bankruptcy, and Navy agreed to house their cadets there, run some training. So they pretty much saved the University of Notre Dame. So that's why Notre Dame continues.
Did not know that. Yeah.
They say they'll never take them off the schedule because they helped save the university.
That's awesome. That's a great game for Navy, and brings a lot of interest and helps in their recruiting, I'm sure.
Yeah, it's going to be exciting. I don't know if there are any other games next week, Mike, but they call it
looked.
week 0.
Yeah, there's some. I haven't. Week 0. I haven't heard or looked at the listing. It's a limited number of games, but obviously next Saturday when we come on, we'll be able to talk a little bit more about that. But that's the weekend that really kind of starts college football off, week 0. And we'll be rolling once that happens, and it's going to roll and happen quickly, as you and I both know. Doing high school games on Friday, it seems like that 10 weeks goes by really quick, and the same thing is true about the college games.
Yeah, I think it's going to be about a noon kickoff for the Irish and the midshipmen of Navy. But boy, it'll be great to get college football underway.
It is. Can't wait.
And other than that, not a whole lot going on, but you do have the BMW Championship for the PGA Tour. Max Homa leads by 2 strokes heading into the weekend.
Did you say Max Homan? Is he on the PGA Tour?
Almost Max Homa, but he leads heading into the weekend by 2 strokes, so certainly you can enjoy that.
Really pressure golf. Those guys are playing for a lot of money, and they're playing ridiculously hard golf courses, and I always dial in and check that out for mostly Saturday and Sunday. I watched a lot of rounds 3 and 4, and watched most of last Sunday's final round, and that was fun, and kind of was rooting for the old guy, and he came through and won. So that's I like that, and it's fun to watch, and I'll be tuning in today and tomorrow.
Yeah, it'll be exciting, and it should be very exciting week, not only for us, Mike. We'll certainly be covering the local high school here that we cover, but yeah, college football right around the corner. You got to love it.
Let's go. I'm ready to go.
Absolutely. Folks, that's going to wrap it up for us today. Thanks for joining us for Gamecast Radio Sports Talk. We'll be back next week. Have a great week, everybody. Enjoy the sports this weekend, and we'll see you next time on Gamecast
Have
Radio
a great
Sports
weekend.
Talk.